Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, welcome you in the third chapter of your course Standard Setting Methods in Assessment. I will start from the first method of standard setting, Nedalsky. But before starting to this, I think it is necessary that we should look into the introduction of about standard setting method or definitions of standard setting methods. Dear students, all standard setting methods involve expert judgmental decision making at some level. Jagger, 1979, he stated this definition. Dear students, actually there is no such thing as a true standard, but there is a theoretical cut score that would be set by a judge if he or she totally understood the process, the test, the content, and the policy, and had a true score on the test in mind as the standard setting. The question is whether the standard setting method can recover the theoretical cut scores, assuming a judge performed every task consistently and without error. Rec case 2000. Many different terms are used in the measurement literature to refer to performance standards. Dear student, there is no common or agreed upon definition of standard setting. Different authors, different assessment experts describe the standard setting different way. For example, passing scores, cut-off scores, performance level, achievement levels, mastery levels, proficiency level, threshold, and standards. Actually, the logic of this difference is that the tests and are conducted for different purposes. Some tests are theoretical, some tests are performance based. However, there is a definition for each type of test. The Hambleton 2001 stated these definitions which I described before. Dear students, before starting the Nedalsky method, I should explain the most common used classification scheme nowadays is the one suggested by Jagger in 1989, who split the standard setting methods into large groups. Number one, test centered. In this classification, following methods are fall. Number one, Enghoff. Number two, Abel. Number three, Nedalsky. Number four, Jagger. Number five, objective standard setting. And number six, bookmark, etc. The other classification is examinee centered. This classification based on the judgments of examinees are judgments of experts on the base of examinees. So these methods may be included in this category or classification. Number one, method of contrasting groups, method of borderline groups, etc. It means there are only two methods in this category. Now I will come towards the method of standard setting. The first method, Nedalsky method, according to your course outline. The introduction. Nedalsky in 1954 proposed a method for setting cut scores. You know, I have described in my previous lectures, cut scores mean the scores which decide about the performance or level of judgment on certain test or performance of examinees or students. So the longevity of the method is perhaps due to the facts that it is intuitive to and easily performed by participants. Intuitive mean their six senses are involved in this method. Participants using this method inspect or judge individually each item in a multiple choice examination with particular attention to the options for each item. It means in this method, basically the multiple choice items or multiple choice tests are used. I am going to tell you in this method the experts use tests instead of examinees. They can make their judgments or they make the standards on the base of analysis of multiple choice items in a test. Nedalsky proposed an imaginary borderline that can be set before and after administering the test, requiring performance standard to be set. It means Nedalsky set two borderline, one before the administering of test and one after the administering tests during the process of setting standards. Dear students, it was the first widely disseminated criterion referred method for setting cut scores. As I told earlier, you people about two categories or two classification. Number one, normative or norm reference tests, and number two, criterion reference test. So Nedalsky used criterion reference method for setting cut scores. In this method, experts first decide about the criterias, a certain level of criterias to be declared past the examinee or the student. So the student's actual performance is compared with the standards or prescribed level of passing scores or standards, etc. So it was the first shift the focus from relative performance to absolute levels of performance. Relative performance mean the analysis or interpretation of test on base of norm reference. It means the tests are interpreted on the results on the base of results of the whole group, comparing the each person's performance with the performance of all group in which he or she is taking test. So in this method, Nedalsky, the experts shifted from relative performance to absolute performance level of performance, absolute levels of performance. It means the student's performance is compared with the standards, absolute levels of performance or absolute standards. Now I will come towards the procedure for Nedalsky method. Dear students, in this method, panels of experts independently determine the F responses for the examinees, and panel of experts assign the probabilities to each multiple choice test item. The borderline candidates F to D students respond to multiple choice items by first eliminating the responses he/she believes are incorrect and then assessing the plausibility of the remaining responses. Borderline candidates should be able to reject incorrect responses. It means they should be eliminate the incorrect. They should be able to response are able to reject the incorrect responses or incorrect answers of the items. To establish the pass points, judges independently identify the answer options that a borderline candidate would recognize as implausible. The number of remaining options determines the probability that candidate will answer correctly the item. It means if an item has 5 options, the students or examinees should be able to eliminate the incorrect response. For example, if one item having five options, the candidates will be able to eliminate the 2 options. So they make judgment on the base of remaining 3 responses of that item. Now we can elaborate through this calculation. 1. Plausible responses is equal to 100%. It means the options are 1 to 5. 1 to 5. The one plausible response is equal to 100%. If all people opt the item 1 the responses will be 100% correct. Number 2, if the examinees opt the option 2, the response will be is equal to 50%. If so on, 3 is equal to 33, 4 is equal to 25, sorry, and 5 is equal to 20%. So probability of a correct response, the average of the probabilities determines the pass points. So Nedalsky proposed the use of a constant K for the final adjustment to mean cut scores. An example. For example, participant judged that for a certain 5 option item, borderline examinees would be expected to rule out 2 of the options as incorrect, leaving them to choose from the remaining 3 options. So it means they will decide on the remaining 3 options. The Nedalsky rating from this item would be 1 over 3. 1 over 3 is equal to 0.33. It means the decision, if the each option have equal probability, then this will be 0.33. It means 33%. So repeating the judgment process for each item would give a number of Nedalsky values equal to the number of items in the test. The sum of the n value can be directly used as a raw score, cut score. For example, a 50 item test consisting entirely of items with Nedalsky ratings of 0.33 would be yield a recommended passing scores of 16.5. It means 50 multiplied by 0.33 is equal to 16.5. Dear students, now I will come to the problems with Nedalsky method. As you know, no standard is absolute or 100% correct, because there is some level of errors in the process or in the instruments or in the documents or context of people who are taking part in the tests. So dear students, following are some problems with Nedalsky method. Number 1, it is not used in all multiple choice items. It means this method of Nedalsky could not use for all multiple choice items. It would need to have the same number of options. So it means if you want to use this method, you have to select those items which has same number of items, number of options. So next, it essentially permits participants only a very limited number of probabilities. It means Nedalsky method compulsorily allow the participants only a few limited number of probabilities, because in this method the examinees eliminate the incorrect items. So number of options in multiple choice have been decreased so that they can assign to items. So limited number of probabilities. Probability mean chance of occurring. So they can assign to items. So it means permit participants only use a small number of probabilities for assigning the items. The next problem with this method is that there are not equal intervals between the probabilities. There are not equal intervals between the probabilities because raters tend not to assign probabilities of 1. It means the raters never assign 100% correct. So they may make mistake or the test of intervals between the probabilities become different or different. So there is a problem with this method that this test decrease the number of probabilities due to unequal intervals between probabilities. So this is also a problem. The next problem is it can't be used in situations where more than one cut scores is required on the same test. It means if you need more cut scores on a test, you can't use this test in this situation. So it means the Nedalsky method could not use in each type of multiple choice item tests. And the last problem is that it seems to place a greater burden on test construction. It means this method put more burden on test construction, not on the examinees. So these were the problems with the Nedalsky method. So there are some advantages of this method. Now I will come towards the advantages of Nedalsky method. So there are two major advantages of this test. Number 1, it can be implemented with or without examinee performance data on the items or test form on which standards are based. It means this test this method of standard setting does not require the examinee performance data on the items of test form on which standards are based, or which on the standards are founded. It means this method of standard setting is independent from examinee performance data. The second important advantage of this method is Nedalsky cut scores can be derived before or after operational administration of the test, requiring performance standards to be set. It means Nedalsky cut scores can be derived or made before or after operational administration of the test. It means before the starting of test, and after taking the results or test items, after conducting test, or it means anytime after administering the test, the experts take only results. They never implement tests or administer test. So they can base or decide on the before test data and after test data. So no need of examinees in this method. Dear students, I have discussed with you the definitions of standard setting method and classification of standard setting methods on base of examinee centered or test centered. So I have described the difference between those classifications. Then I described or defined the method of Nedalsky, its procedure or steps of making standard setting process. Then I described about the problems of standard setting methods, and I also described the advantages of this method or Nedalsky method. After finishing or after the study of listening of this lecture, dear students, you should answer the following questions. So please write the answers of the question which I am going to assign you. Please write the answers of these questions. These questions from the literature or from your book, Standard Setting Method. So these questions are as under. Dear students, please write the answers of following questions. Number 1, Describe and define standard setting method with reference of 5 authors. Question number 2. Describe the classification of standard setting methods on the base of relative performance and on the base of absolute standards. Question number 3. Describe the concepts and steps of Nedalsky method of standard setting. And the fourth and last question is that describe the advantages and disadvantages of Nedalsky method. Dear students, please write these the answers of these questions. Each questions not less than 300 words, and in the next class I will conduct a quiz about this method, and you should write the answer of these questions and get ready for the quiz, which may be written or oral in the next class. Inshallah, we will meet in some next class. So please work hard and try to understand and make practice of this method of standard setting. And Allah Hafiz. Thank you for your attention.